thank you. So we had to cut that a little bit short because we're joined now by the former UKIP leader, Nigel Farage, from our Westminster studio. Hello to you, Mr. Farage. Thank you for joining us on the programme. How much of a mess do you think the country is in?
Oh, well, the government's in a mess. Brexit's in a mess because we are being asked to sign up to a deal that doesn't really give us Brexit, that betrays the greatest democratic exercise in this country. But I have to say, tonight, I'm feeling more optimistic. I'm seeing the resignations. I think we're getting close to the end of the worst and most duplicitous Prime Minister in British history, and that will give us a chance for a fresh start.
To be replaced by whom?
Anyone that believes in Brexit. This Prime Minister never believed in Brexit. And from the speech she gave in Florence onwards, she made it clear she wanted to opt back in to large parts of the European Union. And so you finish up with a civil service-led Remainers Brexit that is, I think, the worst deal in history.
We have heard that she has offered the Brexit Secretary job to Michael Gove, and he has suggested, we're told, that he will accept that only if he's allowed to renegotiate. Would that be something that would appeal to you?
Oh, I think if Michael Gove became Brexit Secretary and we threw this dreadful piece of paper, this worst deal of history in the bin and started again, that might be quite a good thing. But I honestly, even with that, we can't go on with a Prime Minister who's prepared to sign us up indefinitely to having taxation without representation. It just does not make sense.
Although, with the latest Sky data poll, we'll have more details at 5 o'clock, 54% of Britons now against Brexit and 55% backing a second EU referendum. That must make your blood run cold.
Well, not really, no. I mean, I'm not surprised that you see a little bit of a move in the polls, given that it's Mrs May who presents herself to the country as being for Brexit and yet is making a spectacular mess of it. I'm quite sure that we had a second referendum, the Leave vote would be higher than it was last time round.
Although that's not what this poll is suggesting, and other polls. When I put that point to Remainers over the last week or so, many of we've had on the Kay Burley show, and they have all said, depends which poll you're looking at, you have to accept that, surely.
Of course it does, and you know, polls make all sorts of suppositions about the numbers of people from different age brackets that would turn out and vote. Look, we've had a vote. We voted for Brexit not once but twice. We did it first in the referendum and secondly in the general election, and not to deliver it would be a betrayal of our democratic process. It's that simple.
So what did you expect to happen that June evening once you saw that the country had voted, those that voted in favour of leaving the European Union? I'm guessing that you never anticipated this mess.
I didn't anticipate Theresa May. I did not anticipate a cabinet, two-thirds of whom were Remainers. I did not anticipate weakness on this level and dishonesty on this level. I thought the least we deserved was a Prime Minister that actually believed in making our country once again independent. And independent countries make their own laws, control their own borders, and choose their friends in the world. And that is what we voted for, not once, but twice.
And how difficult did you expect that transition to be?
Well, the transition period, of course, was Article 50, which lasted for up to 2 years. And I was annoyed that it would take as long as 2 years to sort this out. Under Mrs May, it could take until 2030.
But looking at the detail, we're told that, you know, it's impossible for this deal to go through within 2 years. We are now seeing that extended to at least the end of 2020 with this latest deal that is on the table. As you quite rightly say, that could continue on indefinitely. We are so far involved with the European Union as we have been over the last 43 years, I think. It is impossible to extricate ourselves from that union within that period of time. Do you agree?
These are public sector arguments made by people who've never produced a profit in their lives. You get business people involved, and you know something? Nothing's impossible, and you find the time frames become an awful lot shorter. We had 9 months before we triggered Article 50. We had a 2-year transition period within Article 50. That was more than sufficient to sort this out.
obviously not. I suppose the Prime Minister would say in response to that. You say business people could help frame what Brexit looks like. If Mrs May rang you, what would you say to her?
Look, you know, nobody can predict what the economic future is inside the European Union or outside the European Union. Life doesn't work like that. This vote, this decision we took, this historic decision we took, was about us becoming an independent country. And it doesn't matter how much the giant multinational businesses and big politics try and threaten us. In democratic terms, this is what needs to be delivered, and it is still, in my opinion, what the country wants.
Yeah, but we've seen the pound has been tanking today. We've seen, is that not happening?
It's very funny. The pound started tanking in
Why is it funny? It might be funny for you. You're a millionaire.
Yeah, of course. You really don't get this, you people, do you? I spent 20 years working in financial markets, in currencies, in commodities, before coming into politics. The pound started tanking in 2009, all right, when we were up nearly at 170 against the dollar. And actually, you know, whether the pound goes up or down, the important thing is the pound floats. And the very same people who were telling you we'll have economic doom because of Brexit are the same people 20 years ago telling us if we didn't join the euro, it would be a disaster. Thank goodness we didn't listen to them then, and I'm not going to start listening to them now.
And what would you say to the bankers who are moving their businesses either to mainland Europe or looking also to move to Dublin?
Deutsche Bank have just taken a massive lease on a huge footage of space in the city for the next 20 years.
What about the other banks? I can't remember. I'm struggling to remember the name of the bank that said that it wanted to move to Dublin.
Do you know, we've heard. Yeah, I've heard all these stories. I heard them at the time of the euro. I heard Lord Levine, the Lord Mayor of the City of London, in 1999, saying if we didn't join the euro, the City of London would close down. Firms would all leave. Wrong then, wrong now.
So the banks will not be leaving the United Kingdom.
The banks will not be leaving. Let me assure you, Paris and Frankfurt are hugely inferior destinations in which to do business.
And the pound will continue to rally, even though it's dropped at 1% today on uncertainty about what's going to happen next.
Oh, the pound may fall further. In fact, I think it probably will fall further because of the fear of a Corbyn government. That's what's going on here today. The markets are saying, if the Tories are in this crisis, if we get a hard-line socialist government, sterling could well go to parity against both sterling and against the euro.
And if we move closer towards potentially a people's vote, a second referendum, a third referendum, whatever you want to call it, you have said that you'll get further involved in frontline politics again. Are you still, I was going to say threatening that, but I'm just going to say instead, are you still considering that?
Well, look, I mean, I'm optimistic that we will get rid of Mrs May, we'll get a Brexit leader, we'll get a Brexit deal of some kind done. I've no desire to re-enter mainstream frontline electoral politics. I'm happy to be out there campaigning, which I am with Leave Means Leave. But if the Brexit board is dropped completely, I will have no choice but to get back involved.
I wonder what the ripple around the nation has been as a result of you saying that. Please come back and talk to us again very soon. It's always a pleasure. Thank you very much indeed, Mr Farage. Thank you. Expecting to hear from the Prime Minister 5 o'clock in Downing Street. Adam Boulton is there for us. Hello to you, Adam. Good afternoon. Thoughts on what Mr Farage had to say?
Yes, I heard what Mr Farage had to say, predicting the pound will go down. I'm not sure that's necessarily the best performance for someone who wants to be an elected politician, but let's wait and see. Nigel Farage obviously preparing to carry on putting the pressure on the Prime Minister alongside the Conservative Brexiteers today, some of whom have resigned from the government, others of whom, including Jacob Rees-Mogg, now calling for a vote of confidence in her leadership. Steve Baker saying it's time that she should go. Now, this evening, Mrs May at 5 o'clock is due to fight back. She's announced a news conference, Kay. Be interesting to hear what she's going to say. There was always going to be a news conference after the Brexit deal was agreed with Brussels. But of course, things are rather more charged. And I'm thinking back perhaps all the way to 1995. When you may remember, I and others were summoned for a news conference by then Prime Minister John Major when he announced that he was resigning his leadership to fight a leadership